All right, welcome everybody. We've got a joint public hearing to review chapter 38. We've got the planning board present with the board of selectmen. So we'll call the hearing to order. We've got the full board of selectmen present. We've got a quorum of the planning board present. So wonderful. Purpose of a public hearing is to be as educational as possible for those who may view those who are here, those who may view the meeting afterwards. So under reviewing our agenda here, the first item is to review the planning board edits. And so we all have version 8 of the chapter 38 ordinance. And other handouts are a revised table and setbacks and coverage. And then we've got the land use chart as well. So planning board edits. So Joe, they are, okay, this would be the table 3?
Correct.
Okay.
There are 3, I think 3 items.
All right. So table 3 is on page 3823 of the current draft of the ordinance. And so if we turn to page 3823, we've got the requested revisions here in this email from Kristen Collins, and she has revised the table accordingly. So we're all getting our first look at this. So no change in resource protection. No change in shoreland. Looks like with woodland, it's like now there's a range under shoreline in the woodland zone of a range of 75 to 100 feet. And if you look down below for the footnote number 3, setbacks from the normal high water mark shall not be less than 75 feet from streams in the upland edge of wetlands and 100 feet from great ponds and rivers. So there's a suggested, yes, Ethna.
I'm just going to ask if there's, if anyone else thinks that 75-100 is going to be confusing, especially with the, the asterisk of the 3 is up under shoreline. Couldn't you just put the higher number, the 100-foot setback, and it will still, direct them back to this?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, is there a reason she went with the 75-100? Doesn't that seem like it could confuse people?
I think it could, but I think it would also make you research it a little bit further rather than just glancing at the chart too.
If we have it at 100, then people who only glance at the chart will think they have to meet a 100-foot setback. I'm just saying.
Right. I agree with you, Ethna, but I also agree with Wes because they're not gonna pull a permit without putting their plan in front of the CEO. So this chart's gonna be here when CEO is like, you can't build it there. They're like, why not? Because, well, the range is this, but you're next to a pond, not a stream. If you were next to a stream, it'd be fine.
Well, I'm also talking about from the planning board aspect, if somebody comes in front of us with a
Right.
permit, we find that, there's a stream on the property. We just glance at the chart, see 100 feet, we deny their permit when in fact they could actually maybe build something there because it's,
Right.
it's 80 feet away from just a stream. I think it would be more. I like it because it would make us look further into the setback.
Because we have 100 feet burned in our brain that everything's 100 feet, well, it's technically not that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Educated people.
It's good to hear it from
I
your
like the
point of
feedback,
view.
though. Thank you. No, if it makes it much easier for the
I
permitting
think, I
process.
think it would make it, at least for the
Perfect.
planning board. it would make it
Nope.
easier.
that's
Because I,
correct.
I would agree with Ethna, you know, from a board of selectmen point of view, it's like, no, let's keep it easy, but it makes sense, what, you know, okay. So. All right, so we've got, so it looks like, well, we'll go, so Woodland, do we have a consensus here to go with the attorney's recommendation of 75 to 100 for Woodland? Consensus, looks like a full consensus there. Okay. Okay, so then residential. The only change is again that range from 75 to 100. With the same, you know, all of the shoreline, the column will have that same footnote, number 3. I just want to make sure, so village, same thing, commercial, 10, 25, 10, 75 to 100. Industrial, 20, 50, 20, 75 to 100. Downtown commercial has its own footnote for number 2. And 555, and then again, that's 75 to 100 range under shoreline. Unbuildable lot, last item in last row in the chart, Route 17 overlay, it has footnote 6. And there's no change there. All right, so it looks like we've got a consensus then to go ahead and approve table 3. Do you want to, should we, I mean, this is a public hearing, Joe. Technically for,
You should avoid voting.
okay, all right. Does a public have any questions about what we just discussed? This is table 3 on page 3823 with some updates under shoreland per attorney Kristen Collins. Okay, then we'll move on. Okay, so page 2 of this handout. All right, so the first bullet we just went over regarding setback and coverage. So next up, the planning board wants clarification on the 600 square foot living space under general requirements. The discussion of tiny homes came up, which I believe is set at 400 square feet minimum. Because a tiny home is 400, should the minimum under general requirements change to 400?
Page 3824.
Page 3824, next page. Okay, yep.
Make sure you go in the right book.
Kids right version?
Not sure.
All right.
Version 26.
I had to go look at different versions throughout the process.
I have all the other ones. too, if you don't- yeah.
Yeah.
So does Cindy.
Yes.
Look back at all.
All right, so we're reviewing the planning board our recommendations or suggested revisions. And so do you guys want 400 square feet, or is that what you're recommending, or?
I thought we were gonna keep that to 600.
We thought we were gonna keep it 600, but our question was, we still have that window between 4 and 6.
Right.
Basically, you can't do anything.
I think we had tossed around, the board of selectmen had tossed around 500, reducing it to 500 and up. But, you know, it was just discussion.
Right, I don't have a problem leaving it at 600 myself, but I just don't want it to be someone who comes in and wants to build a 500, and you're gonna tell them you can't, but a guy can build a 400, and a guy can build a 600.
Yeah.
That was my.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
It's a good point.
I was thinking the exact same thing when I was looking at it, because it says for tiny homes, it says does not exceed 400 square feet.
Right.
in size. So you've got 401 to 6
599.
to 599.
Yeah.
It almost leads itself to anything over the size of a tiny home is a structure then. It almost seems like we have to allow 400-foot structure. As something opposite, something other than a tiny home gets cut off at 400, then that stops, right?
Well, or we just don't worry about it and then leave it as is. I just know we talked about it, threw it around, never really figured it
No, I
out.
don't think, yeah, same here. You know, we discussed it, we talked about lowering it to, but never voted, just never, it kind of died
Right.
in discussion. Valerie,
Why would you not want to lower it to 400? What's the, why, is my question.
Mhm.
Add about 400 to 600 square foot house.
I don't know.
It could start as a first home and then turn into a she shed or a he shed. Just saying that.
You can do that with a 600 square foot home, but the point is, it makes it more accessible to people.
Yes, go ahead.
The 400 square foot language is in state statute, right?
Correct.
It is not anywhere within our document.
Correct,
So we can be more restrictive and leave the 600, just throwing that out there,
correct.
just throwing that out there.
We can't.
The 400 is in state statute? Is
Yes,
that what it, okay.
Yeah, that's why we can get to this point we're talking.
Not to
about.
exceed 400 square feet in size.
Well, that's for the tiny home, right?
Correct.
yes,
Yes,
yeah,
for
yeah, for tiny homes.
And why don't we have a definition of a tiny home in our, I'm just curious.
So is there a state statute for a minimum dwelling, I guess? That would be the next question.
That I do not.
Right, that would be the next.
Yeah.
question.
Because it's different if it's on wheels versus,
Right.
if
Tiny
it's-
homes are glorified.
right.
Mhm.
And then it falls under, having to qualify under,
Mobile
Our
homes,
zoning.
all- everything else after
Yeah.
that.
So, but let's, so in our ordinance currently, we have a restriction of not less than 600 square feet. We have a member of the public in a public hearing asking what's wrong with the smaller minimum square foot size.
On a fixed, it doesn't be mobile, just on a fixed
Yeah,
cement, whatever, foundation. What's wrong with that? Why would you not want?
I'm good with 500. Joe, were you researching something based on a comment? Was it the minimum, minimum dwelling size?
So was I.
I think first time home buyer is either 600 or 650. So someone can buy anything that's a first time home buyer.
Okay, for less than that. That's
That's-
interesting. Okay,
What do you think?
what if someone was building a, say they didn't need that first time home buyer
Right.
program and they had went straight construction loan, then there are no minimums.
Right.
That's their issue to deal with, not ours.
So does the planning board have an answer for Val as far as why, why not less than 600 square feet?
Guess we kind of don't, that's just what we have in the existing code. I am curious to see if there's a minimum requirement through the state for dwelling per se.
Mhm.
I couldn't get anything to come up, so I gave up, especially
Okay.
if he's already doing it.
All right, so Joe's working on that minimum, working, to see that, so. So in case discussion's restricted somehow, let's move on to while Joe looks.
So I just, have
Yes,
one more thing. Okay, so in my research with tiny homes, I went to they gave nice highlights, tiny homes of Maine. And one of the things they said, the town was following a simple zoning, and they updated allowing tiny homes. Tiny homes on wheels shall be classified as a recreational vehicle and shall meet all standard applicable to recreation vehicles. If a tiny home is occupied more than 6 months, it shall be classified as a permanent dwelling and shall comply with a lot and frontage requirements applicable to a residential dwelling unit. And then it says your town can choose how they want to include tiny homes in their zoning rules, but you should not have to worry about building code enforcement for state certified tiny homes.
So are you suggesting we incorporate that into chapter 38?
Well, I'm just saying, I think we need something about tiny homes. in chapter.
So that just said if the tiny home's occupied for more than 6 months, it becomes a dwelling.
Right.
Mhm.
So how are we gonna have a dwelling if our 300 square foot tiny home is not gonna conform with the 500 square foot?
Is it,
Bill.
it's a separate state statute?
It's just something that a town had done. So what it is, it's just like a know thing, know about just highlighting, and this is what it means by looking at the state statute for it. And so I don't know, I mean, we did the other one for, I want to say, successful housing.
Accessory
Accessory
dwelling
dwelling
unit.
units.
ADU.
Thank you,
Yeah.
correct the title. Because the state, if they are on wheels, treat them like an RV.
Right.
So does that mean they have to move, that would mean they'd have to move them
Correct.
according to
Mhm,
our.
Right.
So
Val?
How is a tiny home different than accessory dwelling?
Then an accessory.
Yeah, the accessory dwelling is just tiny.
It's on wheels, it's a trailer.
All tiny homes are on wheels?
They are all on wheels
Correct.
until,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's the difference.
but they don't
Yeah.
have to be, I mean, they
Well, that's what
can
I'm
be
saying.
built,
How
right?
is it different? I mean, it
Right.
means it's a tiny home that's a certain size, that's considered under 400 square feet, could be on a foundation, it's a tiny home, or does it have to be on wheels to be considered tiny home? 'Cause 400 square feet is huge on wheels.
Well, it just said it has to be on wheels.
No, it said if it's on wheels.
If it's on,
Okay,
The state defines tiny homes.
Yeah.
There's a statute. that
And
covers
accessory
that.
dwelling
So
units.
how is
The
that-
state
Right.
defines
How-
both,
That's what I'm saying.
and they are different definitions.
They're different
They are
definitions.
different
and they have
definitions
different
by
square
state
footages. So
statute.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking, what's the difference? Because we're making rules about both, we should know the difference.
well, the state sets, identifies,
I thought a definition of a tiny home for the state was something about being on a frame and on, but I could be incorrect on that.
on a frame and chassis.
Frame and chassis.
Frame and chassis.
yeah.
So that's your tiny.
That's
That's
your
your
That's when they
home.
have to be registered with the state, but then they go
So
into,
once it removes from
people are
that
having them
chassis,
built.
it's not a tiny home anymore.
It's a dwelling.
Dwelling.
Right.
It's
Yes.
a tiny home dwelling, yeah. No longer a recreational vehicle.
And accessory dwelling. A lot smaller square footage,
that is correct.
Mhm,
but that's not on wheels and it's.
that's right. And it's
And it's
not,
an accessory to an existing structure
Right.
by its definition of accessory dwelling.
Yeah.
But does it have to, does it say what it has to have, has to have a bedroom, has to have, does it have any other definitions?
Yes.
Yes,
yes,
it is all written out in the state statute.
It is.
Which hasn't been clarified yet. either.
Exactly.
Okay, because I didn't see it in ours, that's
Exactly.
why I was
It's
wondering.
because it hasn't
Okay,
been clarified by anyone.
Okay,
Mm.
right.
but we're going whatever they decide,
Well, we have any choice.
We have to-
okay.
Okay, so Joe, nothing on minimum,
No, the only item that comes up doing a statute search is accessory dwelling units,
okay,
which is not what we're.
I kept coming up with too.
yeah,
So all right, so back to the sizing thing, I like the 600 square foot rule because if we're gonna go by tiny home and tiny homes in RV, you take the wheels and chassis off, she's out of town. You gotta put it someplace else.
Well, you have to have, okay, then it gets into gray water. That's more detailed about what the towns do for the tiny homes of Maine. Because if it's sitting there for so long, I'm just trying to skim through my notes.
Well, it's, okay, so we haven't really, okay, just make sure I'm remembering correctly. We haven't really discussed tiny homes, correct?
Not
Okay,
at nauseam.
Not an Aussie.
Okay, all right.
They don't have a lot, you can't discuss much about it.
all right,
State
so
statute.
we're already going to revisit signs, okay? Because we haven't discussed signs yet for a vote at a, maybe November, okay? So if we put this in with that discussion,
Okay,
so we can proceed with what we've discussed. Because I think, Valerie's, I know Valerie's talked with me, has mentioned, with construction costs being as high as they are, it's one of the reasons why not size down to allow a 500 square foot home.
Everybody having for help wanted signs. Everybody,
Mhm.
and nobody can get it. It's supposed to work.
So the 600 square feet is what is currently written. I think, so a consensus from the planning board. Wes, you've said 600 square feet, you'd like it to stay. You've got two other planning board members. Thoughts to the contrary on that?
Well, I can't see either one way or the other, honestly. I mean, I probably think it should probably be, because of the whole tiny home factor, the state's gonna drop that in our lap, and already has, that we have to abide by what they're saying. So to me, you can't leave out that window of people. I just don't think you can leave it out.
So as far as like 401 to
Well, I mean,
599.
Exactly.
Yeah, so having a minimum square footage of 401, because the
Well,
tiny homes is, up to
Unfortunately,
four.
yes.
I agree.
Jerry, okay.
I agree with that too.
Board of Selectmen. Shelley?
I can tell you that a lot of people are looking at those options for them. I saw pictures of a potential customer that was gonna do 300 square feet. But it wasn't, it's classified as a tiny home, so she was able to put it in, but it didn't have wheels or anything like that. It was a home that was built by the Amish, and then they trailer it in and they set it on either posts or they set it on a slab, whatever they're asked to do. So, I agree with them. I
They
think
still have to
that-
meet the sewer and the water and all the other setbacks.
Absolutely. You
They
still have to
own
have
the
all
land,
that.
They have to have
Yes.
driveways. They have to have all the other
Right.
stuff. It's not like they can just drop 10 of them on one lot.
Yeah,
Right, no, it's a
Yeah.
primary, you're right, it's a dwelling, it's a primary dwelling.
right.
All right, Ethan, any thoughts?
I wanted it lowered to 400, I believe, the first time we talked about it, so I agree with me, Shelley, and Jerry, and Noel.
Okay. Ethna,
I could have it either way, honestly.
Sam? Yeah, either way. All right. All right, so it looks like we've got a consensus from both boards to drop it to 401, since tiny homes are up to including 400. Next up from planning board notes, let's see here, that brings us down to the third bullet. Planning board also wanted clarification on maximum square feet for accessory dwelling units. Thought we set this, but haven't seen it in chapter 38. Was it not supposed to be a certain percentage of the primary dwelling unit? And then in blue, This is the definition of ADU containing no more than 50% of the square footage of and a lesser number of bedrooms than the principal dwelling unit. So very customized to what they are the accessory dwelling unit of. And where is ADU in this?
That was bad. I was looking at it. Sorry.
Accessory dwelling units, 3854 in and around there. So it isn't a page number, but it's looks like it's between apartment conversions and mobile homes.
Mhm.
3855 accessory dwelling units. Okay, at the bottom. And it goes into 3856. Okay. So let's take a look here.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the definition that Kristen was referring to is on page 3873.
3873. That would be,
ADU is defined on that page.
okay, thank you, Joe. It's in our glossary. 3873 under, first under definitions.
That-
Yes, Val.
That definition is one that you guys made up, or is that from this
It's
case?
the state,
State,
it's the state definition.
Um, So it looks like the question's answered then. Okay. Is the planning board satisfied with that? You know, just, it seems like,
is there any reason why it's not underneath accessory dwelling units?
Yeah, I think it probably should be put under there, but the whole 50%
The definition
of
Is
this
that, you know, I mean, that,
containing no more than 50% of square footage should be put under.
okay.
But that's, other than that, I think that's fine.
Yep.
I think that would streamline it just a little bit.
All right, it is included. Let's just make sure that this is containing no more than 50% of square footage of unless the number of balance. Okay, so that's all set under definitions, but let's show.
Yeah, because you're not gonna be bouncing back and forth,
You're
looking at
right.
the
Well, I mean,
definitions.
Just
Yeah,
make it
so
number
yeah.
one.
It'd be nice to
Make
see
it
what
number
accessory
one.
dwelling
I'd make it
is
number
exactly,
one.
it's right
Yeah.
there.
Make it number one.
Right.
It's not a real big paragraph. in there.
All right,
Yeah, just stick
so
it
Joe,
in
did you
there.
catch that?
Good.
Okay, all right. Does the board of selectmen have any other suggestions? Looks like that. All set with this, for the planning board? Okay. All right, then there's a fourth bullet. There were some changes made to chapter 38. Headers were added to land use tables for each page. We changed page numbers. We also added dimensional requirements to the table of contents. All right, so that,
So the pages are off.
the pages are off.
I didn't go through every single page to figure out what page the number off, but they're all off.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, so,
But I figured you need the final version for, to
yeah,
go
that
into
makes
that, so
sense.
it's not reinventing the wheel.
That's not a substantive change. That can
Okay,
be done by. to get into,
all right, so that takes care of the planning board. Yes, Shelley.
So they did have one more. It
Okay.
was on the top of the land use tables.
Okay, and those are a separate handout.
That's a separate handout. And the header here does not follow on the top, so you don't know what section those are at.
Okay,
I think they're working on it. Yeah, there's a
Okay,
copy that I was working on. It will correct those things.
okay. All right, so that's a formatting matter. Thank you, Shelley.
Mhm.
All right, so speaking of land use tables, why don't we segue into that? So whatever's in black is what is going to be presented in the final version of chapter 38. The blue strikeouts are what was there. Thank you, Joe.
Correct. Blue strikeouts existed on June 12th, 2014.
Okay,
And those have been removed from the final document.
okay,
So the black is the proposed.
all right. Does the public, do you have the land use table?
No.
Is it,
it's in the policy.
In the big thing.
It's in the-
It's in the whole packet.
Starts at 38,
And the big thing, okay, what page?
18, 38, 18.
3818.
38.
Okay.
No, it is.
Oh, wrong audience.
All right.
In that handle, I gave you, it was a summary on this one here.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I remember it.
Oh, it's under here.
It's sitting on it.
Sitting on it. There it is.
all right,
Third page.
okay. So, I don't, so does the public have the color coded version, or do you have it all black as the final version? Black and
They
blue,
have the
okay, the
comparison.
blue, okay,
They have the comparison document as well as
okay,
the complete.
All right.
Sorry.
oh, thank you.
We added hotel.
All right, so folks we're not gonna go through this line by line, folks can read down through, see what the change is. The key is up above as to what CU, LPI. You all know CEO and PB for planning board. Probably had the most discussion. Any questions on page 1? Okay, there were no new land use terms added. To page 1.
I like this stuff that's changed.
Page 2.
Just check.
I think everyone knows they can find the footnote reference on pages 3 and 4.
What's your ad-
Any questions on page 2?
And we added hotels. We separated motels and hotels. so we
Yes.
have hotel.
That's correct. Yeah, we separated hotel and motel. That's right, Shelley. And the land use table continues, page 3, or page 3820 in the current draft, allegedly page 3820. And it finishes up on 3821. Any questions from the Board of Selectmen? Planning Board, finding any discrepancies or have any questions?
Oh, just on the signs one, I know that we're gonna meet, go over, whenever we're gonna go over that. So this is back to what?
Yeah,
What it
that-
always has been?
Yes,
There's always been the CEO in charge of it?
yes.
Okay, for some reason I thought it was the other way around. but-
I felt like it was 10.2, but
All right. Right, any questions regarding the land use table? All right. The other form that's been handed out are we've got a 2-page, Joe, thank you so much for summarizing here. These are the major substantive changes that wasn't, yes, Sharon?
Sorry, going back to signs, I went back to my original one. And it says, yes, 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 across.
Mhm.
And then we changed it to E CEO.
Yeah, I think yes is, I don't think it indicated who, it's just yes.
Okay.
It's like, yes, signs are
Alright, just wanna
signs
make
are
sure.
allowed and all.
see, I thought they had to come in front of the planning board to review. I'm curious as to what the actual ordinance reads on signs, because I know there is a sign ordinance.
Yeah, it's, and we'll be, we'll be going over that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want to make sure, if we're going back to the original,
Going back,
I want to
yeah.
make sure that that is correct.
yeah. So what didn't get reviewed, so that there's been no change in the sign ordinance, except if there was some inconsistency with, nouns for, CEOs, or however someone was identified. What came to us was like a 9-page sign ordinance revision that we haven't talked about. So that's what we'll talk about
Yeah, we'll do that later.
later. Yeah, we just ran out of time.
I just want to make sure that it's going back to
Yeah.
the original.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Then we'll be good.
okay. All right, so we've got folks here in the audience that came to speak to a specific item that was dark skies. So they came, Linda Dexter's behind you. And so Linda, do you want
This
to?
is Sarah England, who's working on the dark sky project.
Hi, Sarah, welcome. All right, so the Ranger Lakes Heritage Trust has some questions, some suggested changes. I mean, they were at our meetings as we drafted, Nancy Carlson was, as we drafted chapter 38 and Dark Skies. So Linda, why don't you go ahead and, and you've got the planning board here, us, this is where we're discussing making some changes. So,
Okay, well, I've got the lighting ordinance is on page 3849 and 3850.
3849.
I'll stand up. So I basically ran that by the International Dark Sky Association. Just to have them look it over and see what they thought.
Yep.
And the general feeling was our ordinance looks pretty good. They did suggest reducing under specific standards, 0.3.1 into reducing the 1800 lumens to 800 lumens. And then they just thought we should add a couple of clarifying words in under section 0.3.2, the lighting height, and add the word fixtures after freestanding lights instead of lights, light fixtures. And then shall be in the height of the nearest principal structure.
All right, so planning board, do you see where she is at on page 3850?
Do you have an extra copy of that, Linda, that you could hand to the planning board so they could look it over like you gave us last night? Sorry, I just know last night's handout was helpful.
It was very helpful.
Yeah, they have the highlights. And then these are the comments from the International Dark Sky. This has to do with signage. Just fixtures instead of.
They want to cross out the freestanding.
No, and not cross it out, just add the word fixtures. And then
Okay.
add the word nearest. And then this is just a typo that should, under 0.5, should be 2,700, not 27,000. So anyway,
That's not bad.
no, I was actually, they were pretty impressed, but I think the work you did 2 years ago with Nancy Carlson, clearly, that's how all this came about.
And then under number 5, they found a mistake that it was an extra 0. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, she already mentioned that.
Thank you.
That's just. a
She has
mistake.
another page.
So anyway, I mean, the 800 lumens, it was their suggestion. There's some wiggle room in there. Mark actually told me he went home yesterday and did an experiment in his shop outside and checked. Why don't you tell him?
No, I didn't do the experiment yesterday, but I had switched to LED lights outside my shop because if something's inside, I end up having to work on it outside in the dark, so it's ready for the next day. And I had 750 lumen in there and I couldn't see enough. So I swapped them out. I think mine are 1100 and that gave me enough light to see what I was doing outside. So I just mentioned, from 800 may not be enough in all applications, but even 1100 is a lot less than 1800. So I was just trying to mention that
Yeah.
was my experience with it.
And this is for the exemption, something that's got a hood over it. Could be a higher lumen rating, but this is for something that's totally exposed. So, but
Because, well, yeah, so 800 really isn't a lot. That's like a
No, it's like 40 watt light.
It's like a 60 watt.
it's a 60 watt, yeah,
60 watt.
And 25 feet in the air when you're trying to see
yeah, right, yeah.
the side of an engine or something like that. you know, it just,
You like looking
just
at
doesn't
the
cut it.
Yeah,
But
but
if
again,
nobody
it's
came and
because
wanted to
it's
know,
unshielded.
how many lumens is that?
Yeah.
If you can read the bulb from here in 25 feet, you're all set.
But if you said 1100 worked for you,
Yeah.
I think certainly the IDA would accept 1100 as a reasonable.
Ethna has a question.
Well,
sure.
it just kind of a statement, Linda. I also did want to mention that I also had that you had additional changes to page 3868.
Yes, and that was on, what was that?
The externally illuminated signs.
Oh, externally illuminated signs under point 3 there, oh, under the general provisions. It says 1800 lumens, 100 watt for incandescents, 14 watt for LED. Actually, a 100 watt bulb is 1600 lumens and 14 for an LED, according to the chart that I put on the back of this from Westinghouse.
Okay.
You know, so, anyway, so that was just a clarification, I guess.
All right. So
So, anyway,
very, very helpful. So, you know, we have someone from the public that's requesting some adjustments to the lighting ordinance. And does this take care of everything that you're recommending regarding dark skies?
yeah, as far,
Okay.
yeah, because it's about the ordinance, which we need to have in order to get the certification.
Okay,
So this is it, I think, everything's, you know, the last revision a couple of years ago, the IDA went through and pretty much rewrote a lot of the ordinance,
Yeah.
and you accepted it.
mhm.
So I think that says a lot about the town being serious about this, you know, and willing to work to what we have to do.
Well, once it's gone, it's hard to dial it back and
Well, that's it.
bring in ordinances to, yeah, to counter
Right.
it. So
Right.
it's much easier to be proactive. All right, so let's go back to page 3849. Linda's our initial recommendation was 800, saying 1100 lumens should work. Is the planning board okay with that? You want to keep it at 1800? What?
Not having a light over my head, I guess I can't answer that question.
Okay,
I mean, I believe everything Mark says, but right now, the worse my eyes get, the more light I need.
mhm.
But again, this is about the
This is
exemption.
exemption.
with-
No, I know.
Yeah,
That was a joke.
so it definitely could be brighter if you were good.
And you do have light over your head.
What is it? Is that 1800 or?
What's the exemption say for a hooded or a sealed?
Exemptions.
The hooded thing, oh,
Right.
the thing about the hooded, it's okay. Or the-
No, it says,
Light shield.
all right, the general standard, lighting shouldn't not adversely okay, when applicability, exemptions, the following types of lighting are exempt from the standards in this subsection, and then the light shielding is part of the subsection. So all lighting not otherwise exempted from this section shall be fully shielded.
Page 3850.3.
It's under-
Right. So I think that's what it's referring, that's how I read it anyway,
Mhm.
is that it's an exemption to that point three,
So you can have, so there is no limit if it's shielded. That's
Right.
Okay,
is what it's saying.
okay, I'm okay with that. Okay.
Yeah, and you could see on the flip side, 1100 lumens is a 75 watt bulb. So, Board of Selectmen, 1800 lumens recommended to go down to 800, but can live with 1100.
I know what I think, but I'd like to hear from the electrician and planning board.
Okay, the electrician on the planning board.
I think that if I had an 800-watt floodlight on the side of my house, I'd be quite upset about it. An 800 lumen, you wouldn't be able to see nothing with it. You know,
Even with the.
So,
No, they're just, especially now, you've got those solar ones and they go out. There's no hoods on them.
I would like to see it go up to, I mean, ideally, I love the hooded fact. I mean, the shielding fact, big lights, you know, the light pollution comes from it, everybody just blasts up into the sky.
Mhm.
Landscaping light shining up into the trees, terrible idea for light pollution. But also, you know, if I'm gonna build a new house and I wanna, you know, car pulling in the driveway, maybe somebody walking, you wanna turn on those security lights and also light up your yard. That's what they're there for. You know, 800 watts, isn't gonna- 800 lumens isn't gonna do it.
But if you do build a new house, you have to have it shielded now, according with the ordinance, isn't that the
Well, I don't
purpose?
know.
If you, new construction would require the shielded lights.
I mean, as bright as you want.
Yeah, so there's no restriction.
right,
Unshielded,
unshielded,
correct.
this is unshielded.
I think that's their goal of the whole thing, is to get shielded.
Is there anything in here about uplighting for landscaping?
So it's supposed to be, there is, in the shielding part, there is a section here about the degrees of which it can go from horizontal, and it should not, it should be
Well, no,
15
well,
degrees,
so we-
not
I-
upwards and down.
I go into properties sometimes, and you know, people, you know, they put landscaping lights at the base of the tree, blast them right up into the air.
Right.
I mean, is there anything in this ordinance that says that's going to,
It's 15 degrees below the horizontal plane is where lighting should be going, so it should not be going up under any circumstances. That's
And
the
so
way it
that-
reads. It doesn't say that as other thing, as I said
Mm-hmm.
that, but like, it's, the way I read it is from the horizontal. It should be, you know, the more directionality, but it shouldn't really be pointing up, because yeah, it's also bad for migratory birds and wildlife, insects as well, for things to be illuminating upward like that. So yeah, they technically shouldn't be doing that.
Ethna?
but is it?
But is it in the ordinance?
Is it in- Yeah, is it in the ordinance? Like,
Well, it says that,
Yes.
that it should be pointed downward, not up. Does it need
Where?
to say not up?
Where does it say?
It's
Not.
under the
Okay.
Shielded.
You wanna
It's-
prevent light pollution in this town, and that's.
Yes, it's from a higher point than 15 degrees. It should be that it's, yeah, versus like, you're saying sit on the ground like
Yeah,
shining
well,
up.
Sorry, I made Where was that? No, it is. It's under the shielding.
Blast, oh, it makes the trees look good, but it's terrible. for
Yeah,
light.
it's not.
Right,
I
right.
mean, if you guys.
And there needs to be a space
trying
in between
keep
them.
Dark skies,
Yeah.
that's
Thanks.
definitely a area you need to.
Yes, there's a couple of those I saw.
Yeah, there's a couple of
Some of
spaces.
that
I would
actually-
address that more than I would address the flood light side of somebody's house. I
Right.
guess that's more of an issue.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's stuff that exists and that might not be defined in here is something that we'll have to address kind of on a talking to them. There's a whole thing about talking to your neighbor if they've got lighting that is obnoxious, you know? And so we're gonna have to approach it that way because I don't know how else you can. You can't implement something now and go back.
No, you
and tell
can't, but
that
you
guy.
can prevent new stuff from coming in.
Well, that's what this is all about, is the new stuff, yeah,
Yeah, it says you shouldn't be able to see the filament with the naked, you know,
yeah,
with the naked eye, so anything pointing upward would be visible.
correct.
So that is.
My neighbor
Not
lives-
necessarily, if you bury it in the shrubs, you can't see the bulbs that is going up. I guess it depends on.
I think, I think it's clearly written out under light shielding. If everybody would break down those 3 paragraphs and read them, I think it's clearly written. in there. But Linda, my question to
Yeah,
you, my question to you is, these are suggestions by
the IDA, the International.
the IDA.
Tax-
So if we don't go with these suggestions, what happens to our designation? Is it out the window? Is there a number we can cap this at and still comply with?
It's, what she told me is that no, it's not out the window.
Okay,
Okay, they take into consideration the needs of the town and all that sort of
Okay.
thing. This is just a suggested
perfect.
level.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to,
Yeah.
if there was a consensus that it bump up to maybe 1100. which
think
would
we
stay
could
off that
sell-
1,800, but would be a little over 8. I didn't want it to mess with the compliance that we're
Yeah.
trying to meet.
No.
That's a good question. All right, so we're back at the whole discussion started with the exemptions on page 3849 and the recommendation. It sounds like there seems to be a concern that the 800 lumens is a little too low. The 1100 lumens would be a 75-watt bulb as far as being exempted from needing shielding.
So that, I mean, and so the thing about it is per fixture, I'm assuming too, so you get a double-headed flood out there.
So it's per
Now, we're
fixture.
going Back to 400 lumens per lamp. Yeah, double-headed flood, 1 point left, 1 point right.
Per fixture.
I'd leave it at the 1,800.
Shelley would leave it at the 1,800.
I got two floodlights and I turn them on at night to look, see what's in my backyard.
You like them?
But are they pointed down?
Well, they're pointing right where I can see what's in my backyard. They're pointing to the neighbor's house.
Do you like them, Shelley?
I'm Oh, no, I have a neighbor that lights my own driveway up every time they come home, but.
All right, so we've got a select board member that wants to add to light pollution. We're just teasing.
It's not bad. Y'all can come over and you can see.
I'm gonna go walk through her yard, I'm just saying.
I can only see
Through
my tree
backyard,
line.
please.
All right, so Shelley's the first to speak up. She wants to keep it as is at 1,800. Anything 1,800 or less is exempt from overhead shielding.
270-watt bulbs, one floodlight with two house lights.
So this is per fixture.
I like these.
Yeah. 18 was where I was when I walked in. Still there.
1,600 is a 100-watt bulb.
Or you just exempt security lights on people's houses from the ordinance.
What defines security light?
Huh?
What
Oh,
defines security
Then
light?
we gotta define that.
Maybe they have like the lights on only or.
See, and under the eaves over the edge of the house, that would be shielded, wouldn't it?
Fixture has to be weighted for shielding.
Oh, okay. 1,600 is, didn't I just, 100-watt bulb. That's a compromise.
Just in her listings of things.
So I mean, you've got a floodlight going this way and this way. It can only be 50 watts for each.
No, they're individual
Per fixture.
per fixture.
Okay, so
Yeah,
even
well,
though it's
per-
one
double-
unit,
Well, that's it. That's a fixture. That's one fixture.
That's one
Double-headed,
fixture.
one
That's one
fixture.
fixture.
So you're right.
Oh,
yeah, so it's 50-50.
Oh, really? Is what they're saying.
Yes.
Right.
Without a shield. So it's a way to incorporate that saying, if you were to have a double headed.
That's what I mean. Exempt security lights. Make wall
Not
packs-
exempting,
make-
but at
make
least
wall-
spreading.
You make wall packs to be shielded, right? Exempt residential security lights.
well, yeah. I
And are
think
those,
that-
are those typically censored? You
What's
know,
that?
Are the security lights, just
Sometimes.
out of curiosity, are they censored motion
Sometimes they are.
or they're just always on?
Yes. I mean, that's what it's
Minor
defined as. A security
minor
light is
motion,
a-
yeah.
just a
So-
floodlight on the side of your house. I would keep it at the, I guess, that's easier. Give everything else a shield.
All right, so we've got Wes saying to keep it at 1,800. Ethan said he walked in, good with 1,800.
True story.
Willing to compromise it. I'm good with lowering it to 1,600.
Well, I think that we with the double headed, there could be another line in here with exemptions. Does that make sense? Minus exempting security lights, but I don't know what mine are, so I'm really clueless when it comes to lumens. I can't remember ever buying something past 100 or 60 watts, to be honest, so I don't even,
I've got a light out on my double one. I have for 5 years. so-
You better stick with it.
Not that this is about any of us individually.
Right.
Anyway. So, you know, so what? So let's find out, planning board, 2 other. Noel, Jerry, what are your thoughts on any changes from 1800?
I'm all right with 18.
Yeah, I'm fine with 18. I mean, I'm late to the game as far as this dark sky and what they're trying to, I understand the concept of it, but back to Ethna, what she was asking the question, if they're gonna lose the status or whatever
Right.
you're working for. I know,
Mhm.
so. If you go to 1500 and it helps their status,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's gonna go to 1800 and it's gonna ruin their status, then I think that's a lot of work that's been thrown away for
mhm,
300 lumens.
mhm,
But I don't know what that status is.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I threw that out there.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer to that
Okay.
because it's not, they don't have a set of rules that says it has to be this or we're gonna
Right.
deny you the application.
Right.
I just would like to see it a little less.
What 1800 for a bulb? Because 16 is 100 watt. I just don't know.
There is none.
Yeah,
There is no.
Yeah, there is.
Wattage.
Yeah, there is.
There would be, but I don't.
No,
have
I
it
just
my
mean on the
chart.
sheet that you gave us, it's
a-
not on here.
According to this sheet from Take Tree Lighting, it's 150 watt bulb. And I mean, it's, no, I'm wrong. 150 is 2600 lumens.
Right.
They don't list it. So we are, it
Right,
seems,
that's.
we already
what
made a
it's not, right?
compromise at some point somewhere between 100 and 150, I'm guessing.
Which doesn't exist.
So,
Which doesn't exist.
Nobody knows a lot of
So let's go down to 16.
1600.
I'm at 100 watt.
100.
Final office.
Since, yeah, we can't seem to find anything
Right.
specific
That would
for,
make it way easier. 1600 lumens, 100 watt, 100 watt.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
Move on.
all right, do we have a consensus here? Yeah, nods, heads nods.
what is it?
1600. You gotta eat 200. Come on, Shirley.
Just,
60 watt bulbs.
what's that?
It's like 260 watt bulbs.
Get your LEDs.
Put another one up.
Yeah, they're usually on sale more than the 75.
One on each corner of the house.
50 watts, Better sale.
All right,
I'm gonna have to call my electrician.
all right, so planning board has a unanimous consensus, Board of Selectmen, 1600?
I say
Yes. Shelley is gonna
Put
pout.
up 2 light fixtures, Shelley.
Because I
One on each
know,
corner of the
I
house.
know what my outside lights have to be, but.
Ethan,
I'm still stuck with where I'm at.
all right, so it looks like we've got a majority at 1600. Okay, so 1600 for, as a majority for both boards. Okay, screaming right along here. Page 3850, just a couple of additions, fixtures and nearest,
Perfect.
okay?
And adding the space in between a number 0.3 between 2 and 3.
And a formatting,
Sorry.
so a formatting adjustment under
My bank is now allowed
0.3.
to do this.
Okay, poor Joe can't hear me.
Sorry.
And a formatting matter under 0.3, just to add a space between 2 and 3 in the indent. On that same page, going down to 0.5, just a typo, it's 2700K to 3000K as opposed to 27,000. All right, then, all right, that takes care of 3850, 384, okay, then 3868. Bringing that back down to the 100 watts known power level from 1800 to 1600 with a 14 watt equal for LEDs. Planning board okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, got some. All right, we've got head nods, yes.
Yes.
Ethan, Shelley, are you okay with that adjustment on 3868?
No, says so.
0.3? No, this is a different
It's a
one.
different section.
So just gonna point out, I see nothing on here that says you cannot have uplights.
So I think there was the angle.
Oh, that's- Yeah,
No
that's for
uplights.
the wall package for shielded light. There's nothing in there that says you can't have uplights. But I could
Okay.
put 30, 100 watt bulbs on the ground and try not to make trees.
Okay, so let's discuss Wes's concern.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so Wes has pointed out that there's nothing, with all this dark skies discussion, there's nothing that he can see in here that prevents lights from directly shining up.
In an airplane, they'll turn off in a jet.
Ethan,
Well, I appreciate discussion in this section. Didn't we already make it clear we weren't gonna discuss this section until we got into signs?
no, this lighting is different than signs.
We went back to light. On signs, because we were in signs a second.
We were addressing a singular request under signs.
Okay.
We-
For dark
previous
skies.
discussion was under lighting for dark skies.
So we're back to light.
So to Wes's point, though, under the 0.3 parentheses, the 3, be directed away from adjacent properties, et cetera. We could add uplighting.
I'm just trying to help out your cause.
No, and I appreciate that, because that's something I didn't notice, and apparently neither did the IDA, but unless they're angling, but so it maybe under this section here, it should say directly upward as well, lighting, I don't know.
Yeah,
how to
you
phrase
guys-
it,
you
but
guys are gonna
Should
have
be
to think about
prohibited
it.
or something.
Yeah, you'll have to think
Oh,
about it.
that's-
It's something if you
It
want
just goes with the other one.
to go into dark skies. this is-
Yeah, okay, so
I don't know.
if I were to contact IDA and ask them for some verbiage for that, would you entertain, that, okay. I'll do that tomorrow and get it back to you.
Okay, it's a public hearing, so it's all about recommendations
Yeah.
and suggestions, so.
But I think he's right about that, because I know what you mean.
What-
A lot of spotlights.
Ethna.
Shining.
Is there anything about?
What level of public hearing are we at? Are we at this is the final document that's going to the warrant?
Yeah, there's
I mean, we're
some-
not at,
Okay.
I was so afraid of that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
No, this
You
is,
would want to disclose to the public tonight any contemplated
Yeah,
changes
yeah,
Okay.
I know.
by the end of the
Yeah.
year.
Okay,
And
well,
vote
thanks,
to
Wes.
finally accept it.
I'll get a sentence
Yeah.
from IDA on that.
so the problem, so what Ethna just raised and Joe confirmed was the fact that this is a final public hearing to go over, the changes that have been made, and so the public, it's fully disclosed to the public. So if there's to be brand new language added to this restricting uplighting, we would need to decide where it's being added, roughly the language, so it can be disclosed at this public hearing. So is there a consensus that uplighting should be added under under this section in respect for the dark skies mission here. Wes brought it up, seems to be.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna. I see what they're going after,
Yeah.
but if they're not going to restrict uplighting, there's no point in doing it.
Mhm.
And really almost any of it,
Right.
I guess is what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
I would rather have a floodlight on the side of my house that casts out, 3,000 lumens and restrict uplighting. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yes, Ethan. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Just going back to the section 38.8.2, under item 0.3 at the very end, 7 in parentheses. Definition of, again, exemption, lighting, state municipal or other monuments. Number of flags in the area are obviously lit without lighting to include our Veterans Monument downtown. So don't have an objection to putting into zoning ordinance restriction on uplighting as long as the American flag is protected.
That's
Federal law.
Fly the flag at night, you have to light it, so
I
that would
understand
make sense, and you're really supposed to light it.
That's a good point. Yeah, so we can,
So that would, we can't override federal law.
no.
So that would be an exemption to it,
Mhm.
So it'd be
the flag.
residential uplighting or commercial uplighting.
Of the American flag.
No, I mean, the proposed exemption would be commercial uplighting or residential uplighting. Yeah,
It seems to be within
Accepted.
the exemption subsection.
sorry,
That is within the exemption subsection already. It just doesn't flat out say the American flag.
No.
I don't know if it needs to be added or if because it's already federal. it doesn't
Yeah,
need it.
lighting required or regulated by any superior legal
there
jurisdiction
you go.
is what's already written. So to add the restriction for uplighting. Would be exemptions, that's for sure. I mean, so under light shielding, would we add, uplighting is forbidden unless it is shielded? Isn't that the point of?
No, you would just be forbidden across the board unless it's
All right, so it really needs,
overruled by government agency or something. I don't know how you word it, but something like that.
so it probably ought to be a standalone then, so. Either below 0.2 before light shielding. That
Wouldn't it be under 0.3 as it falls under lighting that's not exempt? I realize the title says light shielding, but 0.3 light shielding is all lighting not otherwise exempted from this section shall. Isn't that where we would want to put the uplighting? Or the provision not allowing for uplighting?
It could potentially go there because if there is are you saying 0.3?
Mm,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the avoid disabling glare, you know, if someone were to walk by it, I mean, odds are you wouldn't walk in front of someone's window if they're illuminating inside their house or, you know, whatever, but if you did, it would be, you know, a glared scenario. I don't know, that's not gonna cover it, but it might make sense for it to go in that section.
yes. Yeah, Val,
Since the problem is that we have the lighting, we exempted the 1600 lumens unless put it right there beside it saying this does not exempt, you know, up lights are not exempted and are not allowed, period. And just put it right there.
that's a good, it's a good point because it otherwise. Yeah, Mark, let's
I
keep
was
it.
just wondering, does that mean someone couldn't have like a Christmas wreath on their house with a light shining on it?
That's probably.
My light is minimal.
Holiday lights should be
Holiday
exempt
is
anyways
exempt.
for whatever it is, 90 days.
Yeah.
Okay, I
that's-
just,
Yeah, festivities are like a 60-day.
I could just see somebody, you know, taking offense there if someone told them they couldn't.
I'm
light
just
up
gonna
their
say,
House at the holiday.
in state statute, it says you will not leave your Christmas lights over a certain number of days. You will not leave them up over a certain number of days.
Well,
That's in
ta-
state law. It's insane to me
The
that that still
town has
exists.
violated state law then.
Yes, we have.
Ethan,
Can you tell my wife?
That's not inside the house. Just a tiki light.
Take them down.
Ethan, hold on.
Wes, could we avoid all this? Does the shielding part of this ordinance already
I
lend
don't think
itself?
it does.
You don't, so,
Just-
Yeah,
so shielded,
It
and
just has different languages.
you would just have to, you would have to change the trajectory. You'd have to put something about trajectory in
I mean,
the
so this
shielding.
is 0.3, light shielding, all lighting not otherwise exempted from this section shall. I don't know. I don't-
And uplighting's not exempt, so you feel like that paragraph doesn't cover it?
But isn't it up, sorry, isn't uplighting clearly unshielded?
It is. It isn't
So
shielded.
sometimes they are actually,
Yeah.
because I've seen them before, they're in cones and they're pointed in directions so that there's like a directed light, but it is going upward, which is not what dark sky wants to avoid that. And for various reasons, I mean, for wildlife, for insect migration, bird migration, all sorts of things, it's problematic.
But isn't that with
Yeah, I'm
15
not-
degrees below the horizontal plane?
Yes, but
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not
Yeah.
disagreeing with the initiative. I'm saying without us having to mess with other language attorneys and another hearing, is what we're reading, does it actually get the job done?
Yeah, it's a little.
I don't think so.
West
I
doesn't.
agree with Wes. I think because you exempted 1600.
Could it be?
Right, just
have
put a
such
line in
point
there,
out.
put a.
All right,
put a
so
number
let's-
4, no
One
uplighting,
voice at a time.
Right,
The number 4, no uplighting.
or 4I, right,
Yeah.
3.4.
And here's some different, Shelley brought up lighting, so uplighting, here's one that, lighting that is directed in such a manner that shines light rays above the horizontal plane.
Yeah,
You don't need degrees, you don't need, so uplighting, you know, is forbidden in all unshielded
and
areas.
then we'd have to add that definition to definition.
Could it be a semicolon to number 1? Because it talks about the horizontal, it's more horizontal from above, but if we talked about, you know, horizontal from below, or I guess that's the other way around. Sorry. Could it be like a semicolon at the end of that that says, you know, uplighting not permitted?
Uplighting, yeah. Uplighting without shielding is,
Even
Lighting
with shielding.
lighting is prohibited except in cases where the fixture is shielded from the sky by a roof, overhang, or a similar structure shield, and where the fixture does not cause light to extend beyond the structural shield.
that's good.
Yeah, meaning that you could put it under, you could cover the porch and shine it up at your ceiling if you wanted to, and no one could violate it.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Is that good?
Except for.
Want to read it again?
I was just gonna give it to Joe.
So you've got something written up, I was gonna try to follow. this
So-
one. She's in there as well, so, okay.
All right, so where do we put it?
And we're pulling this information from where?
I Googled this from
The internet.
lawmaker.com.
Don't ask.
We can create our own stuff.
What about a time limit? On that, you know, like you have a sound ordinance, you have a light, you know, or it's, you know.
It's
like,
dark.
You know, at dark, well, I mean, like 11 PM, I mean, really, you know, that people. 11 PM, boom, boom, lights off. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I
it's
think your
just that it's-
business is in here somewhere, and maybe the sign mistakes, so I'm sorry if it's stepping outside the wrong thing that I read, but it did say something that when businesses are closed, that their lighting needs to be off.
Except for
Um,
security reasons. Right.
Yeah,
Right, as long as, yeah, it's up like.
yeah, no one's gonna not leave a light on pointing to my
But
hole.
neighborhoods, and, I
Um,
mean,
All right, so let's get this wrapped up.
So it was at Law Insider, and it was just Googled examples of uplighting in a sentence. That's right.
All right, so there seems to be a consensus amongst both boards that uplighting ought to be addressed. Wes, in his opinion, doesn't think it, and it doesn't say, and you raise a good point. What's the point of all this if uplighting isn't restricted?
Mhm.
We haven't decided where to put it. There have been some suggestions. So there's a suggestion to put it under, to put it under light shielding, either number 1 or number 3,
Or make it 4.
or make it the new 4. I like the idea of it being a standalone. Looks like we've got some nods. Okay, standalone,
Standalone where?
under light shielding, be the new number 4.
Yeah, so it's number 4 under.
So what is 4?
And sorry, do you want to read the information for the record for anybody who is watching, may need to hear it? The point is to disclose what's going to be put in, right?
Correct.
Uplighting is prohibited except in cases where the fixture is shielded from the sky by a roof overhang or similar structural shield, and where the fixture does not cause light to extend beyond the structural shield. Period. Yeah, there's some commas in there too. but-
All right, so that fits nicely into shielding. Okay, Val,
I'm great with the definition, but it shouldn't be under shielding because it says all lighting not otherwise exempted, which makes it exempted, makes
All
it
right, so we don't.
16 under
So-
exempted. Needs to be a standalone, like a number, you know.
so point 4 before
7.
curfew,
Number 8.
or
Add it
number
to
7?
add it to curfew. or
Specific standard.
Make another separate standalone.
separate standalone.
Well, the way the definition reads, the structure is actually the shielding.
Well, the thing of it is, so I think Val's point is if you go back to the 1600 lumens that is exempt, that means that is exempt from, so if we put it under light shielding, then anything up to 1600, it's okay to project upwards.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it
Yeah.
can't be in that.
Yeah.
So it can't be in that
It's gotta be
section.
in a different section.
It needs to be a standalone. So it should be on either side of light shielding since it's related to it. So it can either be between light height and light shielding.
Just a quick question, is 0.4 still within the specific standards exemptions,
No,
or is it?
exemptions are dented. Yeah, you're right.
I
It's
just can't tell if the page
II. Yeah.
switches over.
The specifics, the exemptions are 0.1,
Yeah.
Ps.
yes, down to 7.
Oh,
Roman.
okay, and then we're outside the exemption.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so where do you want to put it? Before light shielding, 0.3 or after? The new 0.4? New 0.4, curfew becomes 0.5. And so on, okay. And then there's just the carryover to the 3868, the only adjustment, again, this is all dark skies related. 3868 goes to 1614. Okay, did we cover everything, Linda?
Sounds good, yeah,
Okay,
thank you very much.
well, thank you for coming.
Yes, yes.
All right,
No, you just give yourself 7 different words.
all right, let's try to wrap this up in half an hour. So we've got the summary in front of us with explanation of changes that were made throughout the document.
Lighting and the-
And I suggest you go through and raise questions for anything that doesn't quite jive with your notes. Yeah, Shelley,
Page 3857.
3857.
Under 0.5. And it is for mobile home parks. We changed the setback. For some reason I had front was 25, rear was 20, and side was 20.
What are we looking at?
3857.
3057.5 under 0.2 for the,
You have what for the front, 25?
I have 25 for the front. And then I had 20 and then 20 for the rear and the side. And we went from 10, 15 and 10. I just was, we wanted to match, my notes say to match dwelling reference. So I just want to make sure that it was 20 that we were putting those numbers at.
And this is for,
That is for the mobile home park. Because we took it out, then we had to add it back.
well, I like that.
Because don't we have it in 0.7.1? Less exterior property uses 25, but that could be the front of the. Could be the front of the trailer, right?
Yeah,
Technically,
same thing.
Yeah, so that's why I was like.
Ethnic is the same thing.
20.
25.
25, 20 and 20. And then there was a question, will this violate state allowance? And no is the consensus. That's what I wrote down.
Yes.
So, okay.
And 3856. There should be a space between 7 and 8. Sorry.
3856, yeah, formatting. Space between 7 and 8.
Okay, I'm going for the big ones.
Yeah.
Signs. We changed it back. And the definitions don't match that's in the section, but then there's definitions in the back. So basically, it looks like we're doubling up on definitions. So on page 3866. In the original, we had all the definitions in that spot, and there are some that are missing. But they were all cut and paste to page. In the back, definitions.
3883.
Thank you. So it looks like we're doubling up. So I just didn't, is that intentional? Or is it something because we were just copying the whole thing back?
Six, 3883. We have it on your sign.
Okay, so we have the definitions under the sign ordinance, and then we have it in definitions, is that what I'm?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it just needs to be reverted back to whatever it originally was.
Right, so
Because that's what
if
we
it was
voted to do,
originally,
is put it back to the original. So wherever it's duplicated right now is where it needs to be stricken from.
So you gotta strike it out of signs and just keep in definitions.
Where was it originally?
You have the
I have
original.
too
You
many
know.
copies.
originally it's right here.
We have the
Which
original.
revision is?
Oh, I've got,
I have to put it in between my pages, but if it goes, carries on.
Okay, but this is your original of these
Yep.
pages, not the original of the definitions page, is it?
Must have
Oh, not
original.
The originals, so we need to see
Definition.
how the original with that compared to the original.
Sign. 28, 38.
What's in the versions?
it would be, should be in the current code on the website.
So it was under signs originally,
I think you're right. And then we moved
and
it.
then, hold on, but was it under definitions also? Where's definitions?
3866.
Uh,
866.
banner. It was just really weird.
Well, if we can cut down some pages.
Definitions, 3869. Definitions, original.
It was different.
It was in the definitions.
We just, no, it was
It's
under
in
signs.
signs.
We have one definition for signs. Under definitions, so the name, identification.
We have banner.
Blah, blah, blah.
Bulletin
Well,
board.
originally, right.
So. Somehow,
Anything underlined
Sign
is
area.
inserted, anything underlined is inserted language.
Okay, thank you.
Remember when I came on that I wanted to have the definitions underneath it and you guys, so prior to me joining this, it wasn't, it was in the definitions. And then I remember writing
Remember having that discussion.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I wanted to, I saw it in some other list, I was like.
Well, the point is, we
we
just need to find what the original was, and
Right.
put it back,
That's
right?
right.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're
Yeah.
gonna,
Just the information.
yeah, So I-
This is my first ever copy of it.
okay.
I have.
So I
sign,
think,
have banner,
It's stricken
I have
for one.
yeah,
front and back. It's similar.
yeah, but this.
so
one
yeah, I
is
think
what we're
once
working on.
we dig into signs after this is
And
all
then
said and
this
done.
up front is the
So sign
draft.
says purpose, sign was all crossed out.
Do we have the binder full of ordinances out front still for public view?
Well, I'm not in that, yes, you should go look, but I don't know if you do.
Looking right now at 38. Trying to answer the questions. So signs. version of 2014 that we're using. 3855 has signs. And there are definitions in there. Definitions are in the body of the text.
They are in the body of the text.
That's correct. Right. There only is one definition for sign.
Right. So it's under sign, which needs to stay.
The definitions need to be struck out of definition.
Okay,
And actually it should be cut and pasted because it's missing like flag, messenger flag. There's some other stuff that.
Madam Chair, some of those were removed, potentially. They were taken out through the process.
okay.
They weren't omitted by accident, they was struck.
But if we're going back to the original, don't we have, yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of actions that have happened throughout the course of this, so
Yeah.
by all means, if you want to go back to the original, you can, but there's been a lot of actions taking place to get us to this point, which is documented in that series of strike through.
So I think it just, for the matter of being consistent, whoever is referred to the sign ordinance to date should be, yeah. So we need to strike definition, to strike the sign list and definitions.
Keep it in the
So
signs.
Joe, all of this right here,
So 3883 is what it should be under.
We have a definition for what a sign
Sign
is
is
under
in
definition,
definitions.
and then under the article, we have the different definitions of different signs.
right. And this is actually what was in the original. All these definitions was in the original. And I know that some stuff got struck out, but this definitions were still all there.
Well, he's
And
got it in
which
front of
one?
him. He's got the 2014 version.
This is the current acting one. This is one that has not been touched by any of us, not been edited, not,
Hasn't been molested.
the sign definitions is under, is what Wes said. The only definition, under definition, is the word sign
There you go.
of the existing document.
Just
Okay.
like that. Put it back, just like.
So everything else is.
I think we have to, because we voted to take out the work
Yeah.
that we did on the
Whatever
signs.
that says, just.
No, and if we're gonna take up a single one section by itself, after we
Signs
just
all by
did all
itself
of this,
later.
then we can mess with definitions
Yes.
when we take the whole thing off.
These.
There's missing ones here that are
I
here.
agree with you.
Okay.
We're good.
All right, so looks like we've got a,
He's unclear.
I'm gonna like to have some clear direction on this.
okay.
This is the last call. for this thing.
That's right. So it sounds like the intent from both the planning board and, because I don't think you guys didn't edit anything in signs. I don't think.
We did a whole
Well, we
bunch
did
of
a
work.
bunch to it, but that doesn't matter what we
That
did.
doesn't matter
We're
now.
not going
Okay.
down that road. We're
All
just-
right, so we're just
get
gonna
back to the
revert.
Original thing we need to get it to, and then
Okay,
leave it at that until we get to that road.
all right, so
6 months of work.
okay, so is there a consensus here for the Board of Selectmen as well? All right, so cut and paste, Joe. Remove the definition, list of definitions from the definition section. Whatever definitions were originally listed in the 2014 current code edition will.
And there should be 20.
Anything sign related should revert back to the original document, because that's what we voted on, was to revert it back and to deal with it later.
Put it back, just.
All right,
Well,
yes,
no, I was just curious what. Joe obviously has some serious concerns about a few of the things that have been taken out.
well, it's because it's been a part of our discussion and vote during,
Right, not necessarily, I just wanna make sure that. Everybody's aware that those were not just haphazardly changed, they were
Yeah.
a result of a conversation of the planning board, the board of selectmen. And if you're all comfortable putting it back the way it was, I'm fine with that, I'm fine with that. That's your decision, certainly.
All right, so it looks like we've got a sound consensus from both.
Yeah, I think those are just formatting that just haven't been updated yet.
Okay.
Yeah, Shelley.
So also in that section too, I mean, I don't know if you're just gonna cut and paste it, but it looks like there was, and I don't know if that was part of the original, it's missing 13. On page 3875, where the light from an externally illuminated sign should be so arranged that no direct rays of light from spotlights or floodlights are projected from the external source into adjoining properties or streets.
What are we talking about?
What happened?
Nope, there's like on the previous one we had scratched out, one item for was missing on page 3869, that was in the original.
Is this sign related though?
Yep.
Okay,
It's not related.
and that's original language,
Yep.
which is what we
That
already
got
said we're
crossed out.
going back
Yes.
to.
Okay, all right, just make sure.
Joe, is this handy little comparison thing, is this gonna be available to the public?
Absolutely.
Okay. So on the second page under that 3810-2, 3810-63, if we could change that to the 1600 lumens that we just changed in the document. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah. And then obviously 3810-2 will need to be removed from that. So
Yeah, they'll be. Yeah. So these March 16th notes will now be March 21st. All
Don't
right,
forget to fix the pages.
anything else from the Board of Selectmen regarding missing edits or changes? Planning Board. Anything from the public? All right, looks like we're all set to close this public hearing. And that's a wrap.
This get presented to the public?